This podcast has been brought to you by the Tomatitos Group.
Tomatito Show Incorporated. Hello everyone, this is our first episode of our podcast, Tomatito Show. What do you have to say, Thomas, about that?
Well, I think that this podcast will be very educational and
Of course.
yeah. But before we begin, I would like to take a moment and thank everyone that made today possible, starting with our staff members. Julia Dosorio and Emily Matias have helped us throughout all these stages of this project. And I would also like to thank our mentors, Ms. Sulai and Ms. Danai, for giving us feedback.
Yeah, of course. So, the topic that we are going to talk today is, of course, the lack of patriotism in Peru, but we are going to focus especially, first of all, in the nationalism versus patriotism. What is the definition of each one and what is the difference between them? Do you do you want to say something, Thomas?
Well, I think that patriotism as a way of thinking consists of an ideology that explains the meaning of being proud to be Peruvian and how our different ethnicities really make us stronger, you know?
Yeah.
So you could say that patriotism is defined as the love and devotion to one's country and the willingness to defend it against all enemies, whether it's foreign or domestic. Crisel, and do you want to talk about some potential
Yeah,
topics
of
related to
course.
the definition of patriotism?
Of course. I think one important thing to mention is that the difference between them, because at first, when we started to make this journey, I thought that nationalism and patriotism were the same thing, and I think you too, right?
Yeah.
Actually, the meaning of nationalism has a background that's it's really deep because it is related to the Nazis and the whole Hitler era and those type of things that happened in the past. It has a lot of historical background, and the biggest difference is that then the way that the people think of nationalism is like, oh, my country is better than yours because we have this, and they don't take the criticism because they think they don't need them. Otherwise, patriotism is more like, oh, I love my country. I think it needs to get better, but I love the way that it is, and I am proud of that. You know. And I think it is important
Yeah.
to talk about those topics because, as a Peruvian, we don't feel identified with them, and of course, it is important to shape our personal values and beliefs. I what what you can say about that?
Yeah. During the first stages of this project, we chose the our thesis to be the lack of patriotism in Peru that we found after doing some interviews. We came to the conclusion that most Peruvians don't truly feel identified with their with their Peruvian roots, and we find this as a big problem because um,
This can lead in
the,
discrimination and those type of things, right? And not only
yes,
that, I mean, in the society, in the politics, and the national identity. For example, some months ago, I was in a program about um, Peruvian identity, right? A lot of people don't even know some historical important moments of our country. And what's the point of being like a nation if nobody's know how we became a nation in the first place, you know? And I think that relates to the democracy, because if we think our country is great, we're going to fight for it, you know? And we are going to think, oh, it needs to get better, we need to work in teams, we need to work like a community, right?
Mm, yeah, I think you're right. I think we should everyone should know how to balance patriotism and this in turn will create national a good national citizenship.
Of
Also,
course.
could you say could you explain what our group is striving to achieve in this with this project?
Of course. Um, the whole idea of Tomatito's group started by Thank You Thomas, because he had the idea first, and I was just following it, right? Because he started to talk like, oh, nationalism, 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 because for example, in other countries, they have that sense of patriotism in their soul, right? They feel the patriotism in their veins. In our country, I don't know why that doesn't happen often. And if it happens, it is like nationalism, like the original meaning of that. Like, oh, we need to bring the Incas again, we need to bring the past, and we need to bring, the torture and those type of things. They're like the person that believes that are like very strict with that, you know?
Mature.
Yeah, not only mature, I think that's because they have lost the hope on our country, so they need change. And change it is not necessarily a bad thing, you know? Change can can do a lot of things good for the whole country, but it also depends of who is going to change, who who is the person that is going to change the things, you know,
Right.
especially in the
So
politics.
yeah. So what you're saying is that we need a competent leader um, in order to promote patriotism accordingly in our nation,
Yeah,
right?
of course. And it is important also to have like that sense of patriotism since we are children, because I mean the whole education system is really bad in our country, so it needs to change that. That's one thing that it needs to change for a better, you know.
Right. We need to change the the education system from in this case we our group is trying to fix I mean is trying to improve how students view their country,
Yeah.
hence the point of this podcast. We want to promote um, and raise awareness about the lack of patriotism in Peru. And well, honestly, we hope that overall the information that is being said within this podcast connects with the listener to some level, that it makes him remember later on and think back in the future.
One last thing that I want to say is that us, like as students, we have a power, and the power that we had, it is related how we change the society with our beliefs, and we need to educate ourselves to have a more connected society and a more conscious society too. Because if we don't do that now, who is going to do that in the future? Maybe your children will do that, but you're not going to see it in a very well, you know?
Right. If we want change, we have to start now, right?
Yeah, that's the reason why I'm so proud of this podcast. Well, the whole idea, because I really hope that we maybe we could keep this like a like a little space to debate some topics related to the lack of patriotism. But maybe not only that, maybe we could talk like the lack of patriotism is somehow the reason of other problems. So it is very important to talk about that and talk about the other problems that this can lead.
Yeah, I think the to some degree, I think the lack of patriotism um, in some way contributes to the social classes in Peru because I think there was during our interviews there was a connection between well some students that they were um, what's it called, they were less identified with their country, and they knew of the problem, yet
Yeah.
they they, um, they didn't, what's it called, they didn't know how
How
to
to explain it really well? I
yeah,
mean,
how to approach it.
yeah, of course. And maybe we could say something about how loving your country can lead to active participation in democracy, because you know maybe we can see that in the student community. For example, the people that really love their schools are more comfortable with helping them, making projects, that passion that a lot of people have for a lot of things. And I feel like Peruvians don't have that passion anymore because they believe in hope and believe in the politics and those type of things, and the things don't change a lot here. And if it changes for worse.
Right. I would
So,
also like to add that
as a
um,
conclusion, do you want to say something?
yeah, sure.
I noticed that you were very serious today.
What?
I noticed that you were very serious today.
Yeah, I this is a very serious topic, and I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that 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 the right emotions were conveyed during this podcast. I I, I wanted to be focused
You need
on
you need more
and
passion, bro. You need more passion. Okay. And do your conclusion, please.
so in conclusion, um, um, we the Tomatitos group hopes that this podcast will resonate with the listener, and hopefully, if if there happens to be someone with a different point of view, we hope to have changed their point of view for the better. And yeah, that's all.
Okay. Um. Okay. Thank you everyone for listening to our podcast today, and we will be announcing when the next episode comes out on our Instagram page. Also, don't forget to check out our TikTok page for our highlights and our YouTube page. And thank you for all your support that you will give us. I know that. I know that you love us. You love us, guys. So, goodbye.
Bye.